So Duane Yoslov from Diversified and I were talking. He said, how do we connect the dots between sports and enterprise, right? And he said, well, we're doing something with Mike and his engineering guys at Fox. It'd be perfect. So I said, great, Mike's going to be here. So Mike Davies, our chairman at SVG, Duane Yoslov from Diversified are going to talk about it, the next stage of what we say remote production. So join us on stage, guys. Thank you.
All right, welcome everybody. We are here to talk about BRISK, which is a project that Mike and his team are collaborating with Diversified to do. It's an extension of a system that we first started back in 2021, where we first conceived. But just off the cuff, what is BRISK?
Well, BRISK is, so the one thing that you have to remember is that you really shouldn't let engineers name anything. So for some reason, BRISK stands for Broadcasting Robots in Superhero Kilts.
Or Broadcast Remote IP Studio Kit.
Or that, yeah, it might be either one. Either way, I'm kind of up there. I don't know what these guys do, but yeah, BRISK is the Broadcast Remote IP Studio Kit.
So to talk about what BRISK is, it's in this iteration, it first started and was launched as part of the Super Bowl in New Orleans. That was last year, right? Last year?
Yeah, no, it was this year. No, it was last year. Yes.
And that did the entire production from Bourbon Street, and it was what, a 12-camera shoot?
Yeah, so really what this thing is that, we've talked a lot about distributed production today in terms of like having to connect different disparate areas with a central hub, right? That's what this is all about. And extending resources out without, maybe even a truck or anything like that. Like in the past, you might have had a truck and a crew, and they might have been doing your studio show in Bourbon Street, and then that would have informed a feed that would go into the central unit. So what BRISK does is that, we had 10 or 12 cameras that were on Bourbon Street. That was doing the studio show, and then we were able to take all that in and basically give it to the producer and director that were doing the pregame for the Super Bowl, and kind of just have it as cameras, 13 through 24. And with the same mixer, with the same crew that was there in the main production truck. So BRISK was able to kind of extend those resources out and make them just a part of the show like they were next door.
Yeah, I'll back it up a little bit. In COVID, we did an engagement with Fox to evaluate the feasibility of building a remote data center to support what was FIFA World Cup 2022. And it's a challenging place to do business, right? You can't fly in trucks, you can't drive in trucks, you can't bring them in by ship because there's pirate danger and all kinds of different things that you need to think about. So ultimately, Fox made the decision to build a remote data center that tied back to Pico. And what's really interesting to me is that none of this works without the other parts and pieces.
Yeah, so what Duane's talking about is something, again, don't let engineers name something, we call the FSJE, which is the Fox Sports Dual Event Fly Pack. Okay, we had a lot of better names, but that's the one that they came up with. And what that is essentially a fly pack. You guys all know what a fly pack is. It's basically a truck that is in a bunch of cases. It's actually really slick in how we put it together. It all just slaps right into flight cases. Some of it actually travels upside down.
It's not even a flight case. It's an FAA flight certified pallet with 5 equipment racks. There's 4 pallets, And these racks are full height racks that fold in half, and then we crate them on top. They slide in the belly of an A380.
It was a hair-raising experience to do this the first time, but now we've done it tons of times. It works out great. So this is basically our big facility, our data center, our truck, if you will. And we did it in Qatar, which, as you mentioned, I'm glad you mentioned piracy on the high seas, because I wasn't sure we were going to get to that. But it is split into two bits. One is the kind of the real cogs and wheels bit, the thing that does all the work, the routers and the things that make a lot of noise and whatnot. And then there's another bit that is more of the user interface bit. This is the switcher and the audio surface, etc. So this is what we use. It lives normally in Vegas, like a lot of people who are part-time, I suppose. That's what we used to do some of our big shows. Certainly the World Cup, but also, like you said, the Super Bowl. We used elements of this for the Indy 500, et cetera, et cetera. So that's what FSJE is. We bought it. We owned it. We decided that we were going to use this thing over the course of X many years. And that was not only made financial sense to a certain extent, but also what we actually needed was not available on the rental market in the first place. Right. So now, fast forward to where we are now, we've evolved this thing, haven't we?
Yeah, and so the evolution really started with the advent of BRISK for extending out the studio to the venue at the Super Bowl. And looking at that, the next major event that Fox Sports was faced with was the World Cup 26 coming right up. And as part of that,
I'll just say, like for the Super Bowl, this was really cool. Like we literally put this system on the top of a bar on St. Peter and Bourbon, right? So it was a crazy corner. If you've ever been there, don't go there. I hate that guy. He sucks, and he's suing me. But the upstairs was where our entire data center, or our entire BRISK kit was. So, obviously you're not going to park a truck on Bourbon Street or St. Peter. And to be able to do this was the way that we were able to do, like, one of the most ambitious studio shows that we've ever done. And honestly, I'm not entirely sure how we would have done it without this kit.
It was interesting that you brought up the bar that it was set up on top of, because we had to build it the first go around in cases no bigger than, I think, 8 or 9 rack units, because we had to carry it up 4 flights of stairs. So it was,
and then you have your feet sticking to the floor. I mean, this place is disgusting, right? And I don't care if he hears me say that, but it worked out. Because we not only did the show out of there, we used BRISK to send cameras back to LA to do our studio shows as well.
Yeah, and so I was talking a little bit about how that it's a distributed architecture where it's a remote data center, but none of it works without tying to Pico or to Tempe. So Tempe for production, or Tempe for distribution, Pico for production. And so you have elements of a studio out in the field, the ones that matter, that you need to have in order to produce the content, but you're doing all of your graphics, all of your replay, all of your recording, and ultimately finalizing for distribution out of Tempe. So that happens in this distributed architecture across BRISK, FSJE, Pico, and Tempe.
And as complicated as that sounds, and it is, we developed this system based upon experience. And, somebody asked me today, well, is this remote kind of production thing? Is this a thing? Is it just, kind of, a nascent thing that people are building? It's like, no, this is mature. This is 100% mature. And this is the second, if not third iteration of what, distributed production is. And each time, Duane, I think it gets easier and easier and easier. And I think that's just because of the experience that we had. So when we built this with Diversified, we really saddled on the knowledge of people that had been out in the field, in the pointy end of the stick here, making them a part of the authoring of this, which I think is something I would recommend, because if you just build these things based upon paper architecture and what would work, you're ignoring the fact that people in the field actually need to put this stuff together, especially with BRISK that is designed not to just sit out there. Remember, this is important, we may not have mentioned this, that this is a tactical deployment, right? This is something that needs to be set up and taken down and set up again and taken down, and when it sets up, it needs to plug in and work within a minimal amount of time, right?
100%. And that was part of the goal. And the reason that the fly pack FSJE doesn't look like a traditional fly pack is so that it can set up quickly. It's 4 pallets, you unfold the racks, you tie it together with, a couple dozen MPO cables, just multi-channel fiber cables, and within 6 to 8 hours on site, you can have this remote data center up and running. Takes a little bit longer to build the control rooms out that feed into it on site, but in general.
And that's more about ergonomics and different things. And to tell you the truth, the less time that you have to spend in creating your sort of functional architecture, the more time you can spend in making things comfortable for your production folks. And that's what we've done as well.
And you're minimizing your time on site. So when you're sending resources into the field, the less time you're on site, the less time you're on location, the more time your production team is effectively using those assets in the field, the less expensive that event costs.
Right, the less money I have to pay to the owner of Crazy Corner.
And the more money you can give to us.
As it turns out, he's not wrong.
So anyway, the evolution is from Super Bowl to World Cup 26. How do you intend to use BRISK?
So the Super Bowl was a bit of a, kind of a microcosmic test. Had I actually known that that's what they were doing, I might have objected to it, but they let out the fact that they left out the fact that it was a bit experimental. However, that we did it once, now we can stamp it out 6 times. So the World Cup, I don't know if you know this, but the World Cup is happening this summer, and it's actually going to be part of the thing up the street there in Santa Clara. But
who's broadcasting that?
What's that?
Who's broadcasting that?
It's exclusively on Twitter. No, it's ESPN, and no, it isn't. It's Fox and Telemundo. And this is the biggest World Cup anybody has ever done. Why? Because they've expanded the group stage. The group stage is murder, absolute murder. More teams, more venues, more time. I think 27 straight days before a day off. And what we're going to use BRISK for is basically getting out into the world of the fan, getting out into the fan zones, getting out to do our production. HBS does a fantastic job of game production, world class, that's what they do. What we're responsible for is presenting it for the United States, and our team believes strongly in being out there with the people. Like, we don't want to just have a nice wide shot of a skyline or anything. We want to be right there. So we need 6 of these to get around. They need to be moved around. We'll be building, upwards of 10 different stages in different parts of the world. But BRISK is the thing that is going to connect us and allow us to do production in Los Angeles for all of these things.
Well, with just a minute left, do we want to open it up for a question or two?
Fire away.
So make the connection with enterprise, guys. That's where we started, Duane.
I mean, that is the connection. That's where we had started the conversation. That's how this came together. And we've been working with several enterprise clients that have looked at putting in 2110 architectures to do just this. And we've deployed that with a couple so far. Many others are more hesitant because of the engineering knowledge and skill that it takes to manage and run a distributed production across a network. But more and more, we're finding that enterprise is looking at this as a solution to save money and maximize resources rather than building out 100 event spaces, each with their own SDI infrastructure. You can now centralize that and use that at the home run productions, as Fox calls it, to leverage that across the enterprise.
And I think that what you need to know if you're considering a distributed architecture is that a lot of the hard work's already been done. So you're welcome for that. But we've bled the blood in terms of making the mistakes of what home run productions or distributed production actually is. And I said we, and the royal we, and that sports had to do this because we had to. And COVID was a big part of this, not because of the innovation, but because of the adoption. And we had to jump because we had to jump, and we did. So I think that enterprise realizes, and I was talking to a couple people about this, that being where the action is important, and that you don't only have to be in New York and London and wherever, that you want to be seen as these global elements, and make sure that your presentation looks the same, looks world-class wherever you are. And I think that BRISK and technologies like that allow that to happen.
Last word.
All right, guys, thank you.